should we reset the table, or do we think everybody knows? This ties to the Dadonov trade, 2021. The Senators trade him away. He has a 10-team no-trade list, which means he gives the Senators a list of 10 teams. You can't trade me here. And they trade him to Vegas, which was not on that list. Vegas, by all reporting, Frank Seravalli has gone in detail on this as recently as today and said that his understanding is on that call, Vegas says any no-trade protection we need to be aware of. Ottawa says no. Okay, off we go. A little while later, Vegas decides we need to clear some cap space because we are ruthless as hell and we are going for another cup this year. So they trade him to Anaheim, and Dadonov goes, no, Anaheim is on my no-trade list. Vegas says, you don't have a no-trade list, and now we have a problem. It gets traced back that Ottawa is the one who said he didn't have it, that he didn't submit the list in time. The agent is able to prove, here it is, us submitting it, and this all falls back in Ottawa's lap. I have no idea, and this seemed to be a point of tension, a point of irritation for Michael Andlauer during the press conference. Why did it take so long to investigate this, to get here, and to finally make this decision? But essentially, as punishment, the Senators are docked a first-round pick. They will have the choice whether to give that up in 24, 25, or 26. It's not given to Vegas. It's just you don't have it. It's taken away from you. Ottawa will be able to make that decision within 24 hours after the draft lottery each of the next 3 years. Take it away, Lee.
That's well done.
Thank you.
It's the reason I keep you around here on Thursdays. So, you mentioned, first of all, the irritation of Michael Andlauer, and he said in the press conference, why I inherited this is beyond me, and does not understand why the league took so long to render a decision, but he called it negligent and took it upon himself, even though he knows he didn't do it, that he, as part of now the organization.
It's the organization, right.
Even though he wasn't here, he takes some responsibility. First of all, I think he had a fantastic press conference. You and I will probably get into this a little bit, but that guy came across in the press conference like
a human being.
I am going to take responsibility because I'm the owner of the team, and I'm going to be as transparent as I can, and I'm also going to show you that I'm pissed off about it because I don't think I should ever be in this situation in the first place. And when you said human being, that's exactly it. He didn't come across like, I don't know, Ross Atkins.
Yeah. Some automaton sitting up there with no
It was empathy, like, no, I just got here. I own this team. It's been awesome. The last 10 days have sucked. I got Shane Pinto. I got this happening to us. I have no idea why I was put in this situation.
Yeah.
I thought he had a really good press conference that way.
There were moments where I thought it was less polished than the first one. Perhaps that's to be expected.
I don't want it to be polished.
I understand what you're saying,
Unpolished
but to me, it felt like he was all
sometimes.
over the map a little bit.
Unpolished comes across as human.
Okay.
No?
Yeah. I disagreed with you on how good this one was. I don't know that this is a place we need to get bogged down because I think there's going to be enough of those. The press conference to me was not as important as what we're actually talking about. He did take responsibility. It's us. We were negligent. It was our fault. It could have been avoided. Was a phrase he used multiple times.
So I do think it's really important, though, and that's where I'll kind of stand up for this and talk about it for a couple more minutes because it is important. What Senator fans have not had in a very, very long time is anything from the top, from Eugene Melnyk to Pierre Dorion, to things that have happened underneath that they can trust. Michael Andlauer laid a foundation today, like, I can trust that guy. If you're a Sens fan, I can trust that guy. And they haven't had that. And that's so important to have within your organization when it is going, as you said, every week there's a different story about how these players and people in the organization have screwed up. Fans are tired of it.
In the very early going, when he's talking about Pierre Dorion, he says Pierre Dorion resigned. And then in like the next sentence or two sentences later, he says, and that's a decision I had to make. And so one of the reporters, I can't remember who, somebody circled back and said, can you kind of walk us through that? Because resigned and then you making the decision is not the same thing. And look, sometimes you're up there, you're just talking. Sometimes you let it be framed as resigned to let the guy save face a little bit. Either way. And he kind of says, well, I was sort of on the fence about this or thinking about this a week ago, and I started talking to Steos, and then last night we talked to Dorion. And so at this point, I think Pierre Dorion was told, you're not continuing on in this role. Do you want to resign or do you want me to fire you?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think Pierre Dorion it was probably framed that if you don't do this, I don't see another way out of...
Then that's a firing.
Right. I agree.
Okay.
And he probably should have said that there was no way that Pierre Dorion was going to be able to stay on if like getting past this was not something that I was going to allow.
Right.
Okay, he phrased it maybe in a way of like they went to dinner.
It was a little hazy, that's all.
Yeah, they went to dinner though. Hey, let's have a frank conversation. If I know that I'm not going to get over it, I don't have to say you're fired. I am going to let you know that I'm not going to be able to, I don't think, get over this one.
Right.
And then Pierre Dorion might say to him, okay, well, in that case, I'm going to go.
Yep.
Right.
But to me, it all leads to the same place, and it's him saying, we're not getting past this, and that's my call.
Agreed. So you phrase it however you want.
Sure.
Pierre Dorion was not, weaseling is a strong word, but he wasn't going to explain his way out of this one to be able to keep his job.
And you could tell that when Andlauer kept saying in the press conference, A, he was using the word negligent, and B, he kept using the word this was avoidable.
Yeah.
So he's saying we should have known how to do that. And he, again, it was sort of awkwardly worded, but he did say at one point that he doesn't think this would happen now because he likes the two-headed management structure, which I think he's saying had Dorion had a president of hockey operations working with him at the time of this deal, this probably doesn't get missed, right? This probably someone else catches. No, wait, he does have a no-trade list, right? That's sort of what I took away from that.
Okay, but that's assuming that it was missed and not flat out.
So this
mentioned.
was the other main point that they wanted to clear up, or that people have been asking about. Was this done out of incompetence, or was this done like maliciously? Did you deliberately mislead Vegas so that you could make this trade, or did you just miss it? Did you just screw up? And neither are okay, but it's important to get that answer, right? Like, it's important to know, is your guy out here deliberately trying to mislead other general managers, or did he just fuck up?
Right.
Either way might be grounds for dismissal, but Pierre Dorion's future working in the league, if he's misleading people, is in serious question.
One is worse than the other.
Of course. You don't want either one, but one is a bigger problem than the other.
For Pierre Dorion.
Yeah.
Not for the decision to let him go.
Well, no.
Right? You're letting him go regardless.
But if he was deliberately misleading people, you have to fire him, because no one else will ever trust you again to make a trade, to make any of these moves, right? If that was part of it. So we may never get the answer.
We may never get the answer.
He kept saying negligence, though, so he's trying to cover for Dorion just a little bit.
Yeah, if I had to guess, it seems like a lot of the facts are there that Vegas did ask.
Yep.
And if they asked, even if it was not looked at before, wouldn't you say, hey,
we'll check on that.
You know what? Maybe I didn't realize. Like, you can have private conversations and go, you know what? I don't think so, but you know what? I'm not 1,000% sure, so I'm going to go back and double check.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's what people with, some ethics would do in that situation, would be, hey, I'm making a trade with you. I'm not trying to fleece you. I'm trying to make our team better.
Right.
You're asking me a question. I
don't have the answer right in front of me. I'll check on it.
I'm 99% that I have the answer, but I'm not 100%. So I have to go back and check because that's in good faith. That's ethical.
Yep.
If the answer was, and it seems to be that Vegas asked, well, you can't just have them ask and have the Senators do nothing about it. They either have to go back and check on it and give them an answer later, or they're going to fabricate the truth to you to get the deal done.
Yeah.
One of those two things has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I give Pierre Dorion the benefit of the doubt that he was asked and he goes, I'm not sure. Well, then you'd go back and check and then you would be sure.
Yeah.
And then you would come back to Vegas and go, sorry, there is a 10-team list. Does this make a difference in...
Yeah, because we should reiterate, Vegas wasn't on it. Ottawa could send him to Vegas, no problem. But it was going to be up to Vegas later on. Here are 10 places you're not going to be able to send him. And maybe that does change their interest.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't want to get too far off topic because this is a huge issue.
Yeah.
But when this came up at the time at the radio station and people talking about it, I still don't have an answer to this question. It seems to... My mind is boggled, and that happens easily. I'm sitting across the table from you every Thursday. So my mind is boggled that every trade in every contract, when there are sort of whatever the word is, like factors that no trade lists or no move clauses, like amendments to a contract when those contracts are written up.
Yeah.
Can somebody tell me why the league doesn't have all of that information already?
Yeah.
And they don't have to ask the team. Now, I am not taking any responsibility off of Pierre Dorion and the Senators.
Why is there not a central registry that says in player A's contract, this and this amendment are attached?
How did the first trade go through without Vegas knowing from the NHL's point of view, not from the Senators' point of view?
Because that registry doesn't exist. Each team keeps it. And I think a part of this is because they switch, right? That you get to update that 10 teams every year. And so do you want to keep... Look, it wouldn't be that complicated. Do
you want to keep? Yeah. How about I hire one person that takes care of this stuff?
I'm saying to the player... Are you keeping the same 10 teams, or are you changing them this year? Was it submitted on time? You could hire, for $22,000 some kid out of college to run that little part of the NHL's central registry.
I just don't understand why there are things in contracts that the NHL
I think it's because, like I said, they're constantly moving parts in them, and the league I think you're going to see that now. I think now you'll see that dropped in there. But in theory, these are contracts signed with one team. Like, your employer is that team. Here's the terms of that contract. And this has never been an issue before. This is a little like, yeah, and actually that was going to be in bad taste. I'm not even going to go there. This is a little like,
you want to say it.
We are having a gigantic conversation right now about mandating neck guards.
Yes.
There is not an epidemic of throat cutting.
Right.
Do I think we should implement neck guards? Yes. But is it because suddenly this is happening all over the place? No, it's happened once and it's ended tragically.
Right.
So now we're having the conversation. So in this case, there is not an epidemic of trades that are falling apart, no trades not being honored, right? It's always been fine. People have been transparent with each other. No one's ever bungled it quite like this. Now that it has been bungled like this, we're going to have the conversation.
I guess. Yeah. It just, when the NHL or Michael Andlauer said that the league was embarrassed, maybe they were embarrassed because they didn't have all their ducks in a row. And if I'm the league, I get it that I don't like that these teams are doing it, but
this has never happened to anybody else. This is just Pierre Dorion and the Ottawa Senators.
You can't tell me that it's never happened ever.
Well, have you heard about it happening before?
Not this particular issue, but you're telling me that there are NHL contracts out there that have to be looked at by the league in order for trades to go through, yet the NHL doesn't have the information when these trades are made? That's just stupid.
That's fine, but it's passing the buck. This is the Senators' fault.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Entirely the Senators' and fault. You know what I would compare it to?
Brett screwed Brett. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Brett.
Well, I have no sympathy for Vince when he got knocked out in the locker room by Brett. Right?
This is where we're at with this. This is entirely Pierre Dorion's doing.
Yes.
And so maybe the next logical place to go with this is the punishment. It's the first round pick that Ottawa's being docked.
Yeah.
Sends fans, look, quite rightly,
Yep.
are pretty pissed. It does seem stiff, and I should point this out, as listeners have been pointing out for me all day today. I put out an episode on Wednesday morning where I said, it's not going to be a first-round pick. That's ridiculous. It's way too stiff. They're not going to do that.
Well, because the Chicago Blackhawks
Let's not do that.
No, the Chicago Blackhawks didn't get penalized.
I'm not even going down that road. I'm not going to have a conversation where a botched hockey trade is even considered in the same discussion as a 10-year sexual assault cover-up. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, but you have to because
I don't.
That 10-year cover-up did not get punished as much as this. Correct?
I just told you I'm not having that conversation. It's gross to me that we're even going to consider talking. If that's a comparison for you, you can have that, but I'm not weighing in on it. Like you can.
Okay. Well, I'll say.
To me, it's
fine. I'll say
these are not things that should be discussed in the same sentence. I think it's gross.
But I'm agreeing with you that it's gross, but
that Ottawa gets to go, hey, they're allowed to rape people, so how come we can't do bad trades?
No, it's not that. It's the fact that the National Hockey League isn't doing enough on what you're talking about that is gross. That's what the issue is. And when you have a hockey screw up as opposed to something that is so much more, it's just such a terrible thing.
One is people with real life consequences.
Yes.
The other is a hockey trade.
Right. And that got punished less.
Yeah.
So it's a really difficult thing for people to understand. It's not a...
I've seen people making this argument all day on Twitter. you're not taking me there.
But it's just not a... If you screw up a hockey thing, how is that worse than screwing up a life thing that has affected human beings? And what I think will happen here, or I think it at least is a possibility of happening, is with the decision to part ways with the person who did this and with a new owner coming in, will the punishment now be lessened because the Senators took swift action in...
So this is the other one, and this one
righting a wrong.
You can debate is New Jersey, right? New Jersey signs Ilya Kovalchuk to a contract that clearly circumvents the salary cap. The league cancels the contract, says, no, you can't do that. The contract gets redone, and New Jersey is punished by losing, I believe, a first and a third round pick.
Yep.
And then Kovalchuk doesn't even stay for the whole terms of the contract. He bolts back to Russia, leaves like $70 million on the table. And then New Jersey has new ownership, and the group and the organization turns around and says to the league, look, it wasn't us that did it. The player's gone. Can we reel this in a little on the punishment?
Yeah.
The NHL doesn't give them back their pick, but does give them the 30th pick. So they have a first round pick back, but it wouldn't, in theory, if I don't even know what it would have been that year. If New Jersey would have picked 13th that year, you're picking 30th still. It was not tied to their performance anymore. So that one was rescinded and softened. I think the NHL knew there was a new owner coming in. They've obviously talked to him. Michael Andlauer said that in the press conference. He was given like a 70-page report on what had happened.
73-page report.
The third page, the last 3 pages are just like the glossary and the table of contents and stuff. There was 70 pages, I think.
I didn't realize you had seen the document.
That's
nice.
It's really interesting, yeah. Look, and you could, at that point, they could have said to him, fire Pierre Dorion and we will soften it to this, or keep him and understand that you're getting the first round pick. I think it's a little pie in the sky right now for Sens fans to go, okay, that guy's gone, we'll get our pick back, or we'll get something. Like, just because it's been rescinded once doesn't mean it's automatically going to be rescinded again. I think that's possible. But one of the things I would like to ask you about this is, what would you do in response? As I said off the top, Ottawa has the choice to give up their first round pick in 24, in 25, or 26. So in theory, the longer you wait to do it, maybe everybody cools off a little, right? Maybe if you keep saying, we'll do it next year, and then just before 26 draft, you go to Gary and go, come on, look, like, this was not a thing. The guy's been gone forever, and maybe you do get your pick back. But that's a bit pie in the sky. I would tell you, in terms of hockey strategy, I'd give it up this year, barring like catastrophe where you end up in the lottery and like picking.
So you've watched them
overall
for their first 8 games,
right? But the reason I would do that is because all your young guys have like just graduated, right? You're early in this window that you're hoping is about to open to contend. And so all those pieces are there. In theory, in 3 or 4 or 5 years even,
You're going to be good.
You're going to be good.
Yeah.
You're going to be up against the cap. You're going to be, in theory, right? You'll be pushing for a
They
championship.
are up against the cap.
Well,
right now.
right. But like in theory, you would either then have a first round pick that has made his way into your lineup and is playing cheap on an entry level contract, or you have the prospect or pick to trade to bring in something else at the deadline. I would want to, in a hockey sense, get this out of the way as quick as possible so that it's not hanging over me while I'm trying to go through that contention.
Yeah, I think honestly, Matt, to answer that, having covered a lot of junior hockey and a lot of scouts and a lot of NHL drafts, which, by the way, on another episode, we got to talk about the decentralization of the NHL draft. It was like my favorite thing to go to ever. Been to 10 of them.
Yeah. Rooming with AJ. That's going to be a show itself.
Man, I was having such a good day. So, with that, you really do. I trust the scouts when you're with them one-on-one and they're not on record and stuff. They're just telling you what's happening. They know things more than you know your technical equipment here that you've been working with every single day.
Yeah.
They know every guy in that draft. They know whether it's going to be a good draft. They know whether it's going to be a bad draft, deep draft, not a deep draft. Like, just because they know it doesn't mean like the teams execute all of that. But and it doesn't mean you don't find diamonds in the rough and players. Just because you look at somebody at 17, it's why I think the draft age should be like pushed back to 19 or 20, because it's just such a gamble to know what guys are at 17 years old as opposed to what they turn into at 22, which is like 5 years later and they're 22 years old. But so until a bunch of scouts could tell me if the 24 or the 25 or the 26 draft is good, bad, or indifferent, what pick number 27 might be in one draft might be 45 in another draft.
Sure. Yeah.
And until you know that information, until you have all of that at your disposal, I don't know whether I'd be, let's just get it over with so that we can move on. Because if you get it over with in this deep draft and then the next draft comes along and it's really not close to what the previous draft was, like you look at the difference between, say, 2011 and 2012, the NHL drafts, right? It's just mind-boggling to look at those drafts and go, my God, in 2011, you guys just, deep into the first round that were so good. I mean, 2003 is like one of the greatest first rounds ever. But you look at some of the other drafts that came along where it just is so deep. And then the next year, it's like, oh, yeah, picks 1, 3, 5, and 6 were crap. Right? So until I have that information, I don't know. I'm not going to make that call. I do think it could be. I don't think it's pie in the sky. Speaking of the pecan pie porter to be drinking at this point. Did I say pecan? Damn it. The pecan.
Yeah.
I don't think it's pie in the sky. I do think it's a worthwhile conversation down the road for the NHL in the sense to go, look, we didn't inherit this. We got rid of the guy right away. I don't think we did anything intentionally here with this group now. And I think that's a conversation down the road.
So you would just hang on to it as long as you can and hope he changes his mind?
No, I would put this in the hands of my scouts and go, just, you need to tell me where and how deep the drafts are, because sometimes we get caught up in, you're a playoff team, you're not playoff team, you're in the lottery, it matters so much, and you're 15th, and then you lose in the first round of the playoffs and you're 17th. Well, that's 17th overall.
I understand what you're saying.
Could be
the
way
depth
better.
Of each draft
so
is different.
I would put it in their hands, and you tell me when the best, if I'm the owner, you tell me when the best time to do this is.
Maybe we jumped the gun a little bit just on the fact that it is a first round pick. Did that surprise you that it was that hefty?
Yeah, of course it did. But the NHL doesn't like to be embarrassed. And sometimes they do things that they can rescind later to make the punishment kind of what people thought. and it's background noise at that point. They make statements early, and it's easier to go back on those statements when people don't care as much. Like if this story comes across in a year where the Senators, let's just compare it to the New Jersey situation where they get the 31st pick. How many teams are in the NHL again?
There's 32, but
32.
At the New Jersey thing, it was 30.
Okay, so you get the 33rd pick.
Yeah.
And if that story comes out in a year, are people going to go, oh my God, I can't believe they went back? No, they're not. So it's easier to make statements up front to make sure that you're protecting the image of your league as opposed to what you might do in a year where nobody really cares.
Yeah.
I think the NHL overcompensates sometimes when they get embarrassed.
I as you know, as I already said, and as the listener knows, I already said I didn't think it would be a first. I assumed it would be at least a third. Like they were going to get hit here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Maybe a second and a first. Yeah, I'm a little surprised, and perhaps not surprisingly. Look, I'm the easy guy to go. You're just picking on the Sens or whatever. I don't think a first is as crazy as some people say it is. It's higher than I thought, obviously, but they fucked over a lot of people here.
Right.
Like we can start with Vegas, who has this reputation already of being kind of heartless, right? You go back to Marc-Andre Fleury and what, just look, if you can't help us, you're gone and we're moving on. And look, Vegas has been a good team since they came into the league and they have a championship. So they're probably doing this right by being that heartless. Yes, exactly. But they don't want a reputation of being like, we're just totally ignoring people's no trade lists and things like that. So you sort of fucked over Vegas.
Well, you did screw them over,
right?
For sure.
You fucked over Anaheim,
yes,
to a lesser degree, but still, because Anaheim doesn't want it to be made public that we're on people's no trade lists, right? First, like, that's a bad look for any team when you find that out, and so that came out when it never should have, because that trade talk never even should have.
Well, they also wanted the player, for whatever. Maybe they wanted the player for cap reasons.
Right.
I don't care why they wanted him.
Yep.
They wanted him, and they didn't get him.
And then Dadonov himself has all the contractual right in the world because he negotiated this contract, and his agent got the document in to say, I'm not going there.
Right.
And yet it gets public, and now there's fans on Anaheim's side, on Vegas's side going, look, Vegas's fans want him to go, so they have the cap space.
Yep.
Anaheim's fans are saying, like, what? Is our team not good enough for you? Dadonov also has to walk back into that locker room the next day, which is going to be uncomfortable as hell, going, hi, I'm still here, right? Like, so you screwed over all three of those parties. So,
not to mention the National Hockey League, right?
Yeah, I could care less about them.
I know,
but you're right.
It doesn't mean they didn't screw them over just because you don't
looked
care
a little, that you made them look a little Mickey Mouse, right? And your point earlier on that had the league had this documented better and centralized better, this could have been avoided, but they don't because it had never been an issue before. So the league is made to look bad as well. So a first-round pick, it's hefty, but I don't think it's crazy. Like, I don't think it's, oh my God, you've made a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. I think you made a lot of people look bad. Everyone knows where this is coming from. Even Michael Andlauer in his press conference says, this is us, right? This happened. It wasn't him. He wasn't here yet, but it was his team. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a punishment here, and it was going to be significant. And so the more I've sort of thought about it over the course of the day, I go, yeah, maybe it's not crazy. Maybe a first isn't crazy.
And because, to me, the reason it's a first is because of what we just talked about previously. It's really hard without having the information right in front of you to call somebody a liar. But I think the punishment came down. This is an opinion, that the punishment was as harsh as it was because this was done on purpose. It was not done by accident. If you
think somewhere in that private document that you and I don't have, there is some evidence that this might have been Pierre kind of giving a fuck you to the Vegas goal, because they've made some trades in the past that haven't worked out for Ottawa too. Like, you think there might have been some malice in what he was doing?
Malice is hard. I think if you want the deal to go through,
you say what you got to say.
You say what you got to say for the deal to go through.
If that is true, they had no choice but to fire him. He had to go. You cannot have anyone running your franchise that other GMs, other teams are going, that guy's greasy and we can't deal with him.
Right.
You got to go.
So
you got to go.
If the NHL found out, to me, it absolutely looks like this happened. The NHL took 18 months. If Michael Andlauer wants to know why it took so long, I don't know why it took 18 months, but it's pretty clear that they've talked to all of the parties involved and they agree with Vegas and they agree with Anaheim and they don't agree with Ottawa.
Right.
And that makes it seem to me like this was done. Again, malice is the wrong word, but it wasn't done by accident.
This wasn't if it was strictly an oversight.
Right. If it was done by accident, somebody didn't actually know that there was a...
You still might want to fire your GM for being bad at his job, but there would be less, you have to go right now, right? Like there would be less of this sort of shady...
Yeah, it was an accident that's not forgivable from a GM point of view, that a guy that you want running your team. But if I think this was an accident by the NHL standards, maybe it's a second or third round punishment, not a first.
Yeah.
Where it seems like, hey, this was not an accident, and we have the proof that it's not an accident, so we are going to make it.
Yeah. I've been wading through hockey Twitter this afternoon, and look, I totally understand Sens fans being pissed and wanting to point over here and point over there. Like, I'd be pissed too if my team was docked a first-round pick for something like this. But I just think there's an element, like the people saying that Vegas put out a tweet that said, we're satisfied with the league's investigation, we'll have no further comment. And the replies are just full of, you're pissy pants, right? No, they had a legitimate grievance here.
Of course they did.
Got screwed. They've been made to look bad. This is not about blaming Vegas. This is very much...
I'd like to blame...
Screwed Brett.
I'd like to blame Vegas for a lot of things.
Sure.
Because I personally don't like some of the people and the way that they run their operation. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean they're at fault for everything that happens.
Yeah.
You can't... This is on the Sens, and the Sens got punished today.
That's right.
And Pierre Dorion was let go because of it, because it's a big, big mistake.
So we have said this a few different times. I know you have on the radio, we have here on the show. Is this finally the time where the Sens turn the page? This maybe sounds a little dark, but the Melnyk passing was going to be a turning of the page. The new owner was going to be a turning of the page. There was the new contracts, right? Jake Sanders, everything's looking up. That's going to be a turning of the page. Are we finally there? Like, is there anything left that is going to be unearthed from this gross past of the Ottawa Senators? Or do they finally get to just, okay, it's all done. Obviously they're going to have to go out and find a GM, but all of that stuff, we've put it in the past, and this team is finally now going to just be a normal National Hockey League franchise.
It doesn't mean that other things won't come out of what the organization has done in the past, but yes. The answer is yes to your question, that this is a new era for the direction of where the Ottawa Senators are going. I think it was handled well by Andlauer and Staios today. And just think about the fact that how many people have been hired around Pierre Dorion that Pierre Dorion didn't really have a say in what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you one in Daniel Alfredson, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to bet.
Well, even going back to like Pierre Maguire and...
Well, I know all of those ones. But when Michael Andlauer has come in, Michael Andlauer hired Steve Staios, and I don't think he could have given a rat's ass about what Pierre Dorion thought.
That's right.
So,
well, we talked a week or two ago about that meme. I think it was on opening night for the home opener for the Sens, where Michael Andlauer and Steve Staios are sort of huddled in the owner's booth, kind of talking about something, and Pierre Dorion's off on his own, like not part of the group,
right?
Like,
but I don't think he cared what Pierre Dorion thought about hiring Steve Staios as the president of hockey operations. Daniel Alfredson came in. And I don't think that's a great relationship between Daniel Alfredson and Pierre Dorion.
Right.
I was surprised that he actually came in before something was done with Pierre Dorion.
Yeah.
But now something is. I think you'll see more of Alfie. I think there's been other people as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pierre Dorion hasn't had a say in a bunch of stuff that's happened since Michael Andlauer came in, and now that he's gone, I think a lot of this stuff is, for Sens fans, it feels like this was
the last painful Band-Aid to rip off.
Yeah, this is the last
something.
domino to fall in an era that's been terrible for the Ottawa Senators for a long time.
Yeah.
And look, I don't, as a guy who lost his job, and like, I never feel good when people lose their jobs. I do think Pierre Dorion has done enough wrong to not still be the general manager of the Senators before today.
Well, Bruce Garriock kicked off that press conference saying, was this essentially the straw that broke the back?
The last straw.
Yeah, the last straw. That's right. And Michael Andlauer goes, that would be a fair way to describe it. And then it seemed like a minute or two later, and I'm not trying to criticize Andlauer on the presser again, it seemed like maybe he felt like that was a harsh way to frame it. Like he sort of wanted to pull it back a little bit, but he was suggesting that, yeah, enough's enough, right? Like this was too much. It's time to go.
I think I've learned when people come into new situations, the worst thing that you can do is come in and not listen and go, I got all the answers right away. So you, and you are gone.
Right.
And I'm going to do things my way, and I'm the new boss.
Yeah.
Worst thing that
not a good idea.
Worst thing you could possibly do. Doesn't mean that you don't have ideas as to what is happening within the organization, whether it's like Sean Burke with the Ottawa Redblacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had a pretty good idea of what was happening in his organization long before he let Paul LaPolice go.
Yeah.
But he gave Paul LaPolice a long time to be able to try and figure it out, and I think he listened to a lot of people and let things play out until a time came where he had to make a decision.
Well, Brendan Shanahan comes into the Leafs. He's given control. He's the new president. He goes, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to see what this all looks like. And he gives it like 10 months.
Right.
And then it's Bloody Monday, and everybody's gone.
Yeah.
Scouts are gone, coaches are gone, management's gone.
Yeah, but
he gives it time.
Yes.
I got to see for myself what this looks like.
So do I think that Michael Andlauer and then Steve Staios probably had an idea that things weren't going in the right direction and that they were going to have to change things? I think they did.
Sure.
But it's not like they were going to come in and go, okay, bam, 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 this person, this person, this person, you're all gone and we're going to start and that's it. They're going to sort of let things play out. Unfortunately or fortunately for them, a day like today comes around and you're like, I'm not going to let this play out any longer.
Yeah.
This happened. It wasn't under my watch, but this happened, and this is not going to be okay going forward. So I am parting ways with this person who made a terrible, terrible mistake in the hockey world.
Right.
So do I think it would have happened anyway in the next 6 months or a year? I personally do.
Yeah.
But this
the door got opened.
Yeah, and this situation has allowed it to be expedited. Unfortunately, for Sens fans and the organization, the expense of a first-round pick being taken away.
Yeah.
Interesting, maybe you're going to bring this up, but interesting that along the way, Steve Staios said, what was his exact wording? About that he still has faith in the coaching staff.
Yeah.
He thinks that they're going in the right direction.
They come out looking organized, which is the part I took exception to. He was right when he said the players want to play for DJ, the players respect DJ.
Right.
I think all that's true. He goes, they still look organized to start their game. Do they? Like, to me, they are not a good team in their own zone. They don't appear to know what to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I rolled when he said we look organized.
Yeah.
No. You had a 3-game losing streak stopped because you got absolutely torched and Tristan Jarry couldn't stop a beach ball. Now, I get it. That happens the other way too, where you play better and the other goalie plays well, and maybe you deserve some of those. But for anybody that thinks that they played well in Pittsburgh, if you look at the scoreline, they got torched in the first half of that game.
Yeah.
Like it was, the shots at one point were 20, I want to say they were 23-8, and the Sens were leading 3-0.
Yeah, and while Tristan Jarry can't stop a beach ball, you got Korpisalo doing his 1998 Dominic Hasek impression at the other end. So
and organized, he looked like fish out of water that was just happening to be stopping the puck that day instead of not stopping.
But you're
the
right;
puck.
those can go the other way
For sure.
Yeah.
But they don't look organized.
No, they don't.
So that's the point that Steve Staios said.
Yeah.
And let's get to another part of this.
Okay.
Where, man, I'm having a hard time with DJ Smith right now because it's like I want to like him. I did like him. I want to like him. The players like him.
Yep.
I think he's got some really good qualities as a coach. But are you kidding me with the... I'm going to get the exact quote here because I don't want to
If I'm about to smash someone, I want it to be for a real quote.
We wanted to be 500 or better in October.
Yeah.
November is a very important month. Hey, DJ, October was a very important month. And you know when you played 5 of 8 teams that didn't make the playoffs last year and you've spent the majority of the time at home against these, like, the Detroits and the Buffaloes and the mid-card crap teams in this league, and you're 4-4 now and go, we wanted to go 500? Well, if you want to go 500 for the year, you're going to end up with 82 points and 13 points out of a playoff spot, and you're going to be looking for a goddamn job. Stop it with this crap. 6 years you haven't made the playoffs and you want to be 500? Can you imagine if the Vegas Golden Knights came out?
Yeah.
We won the Stanley Cup last year.
Bro.
Okay, we won the Stanley Cup. And coach comes out at the end of October. We wanted to be 500 in October. What the hell is that? You should have lost 4 in a row. You've lost 3. You lost 3 in a row before you beat Pittsburgh because your goalie played better than their goalie. I know you've had some injuries. You had the Pinto news, but he wasn't signed anyway.
Yeah.
You do get Norris back. Mm-hmm. Teams go through injuries. Have some depth.
Yeah, and frankly, Ridley Gregg's been as good as anyone could have hoped for him to be. And you got all you could out of that, and you're like, yeah, no.
How many goals do you have?
500.
Half of your goals have come from your defenseman anyway, right? Like, they're all scoring.
Yep.
Sanderson scoring, Chychrun scoring.
Well, we're all scoring before they all got hurt.
No, Shabbat got hurt, and he wasn't scoring, and Zub never scores. And,
All right.
The point is that no other team do you hear about, oh, we got a couple of injuries, like the world's over. Zub's going to be back, like, next game.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, and this was a criticism of Dorion as well, who would never come out and say, yeah, it's our goal to make the playoffs. Like, well, we'd like to be around the playoffs. We'd like to... Dude, like, at some point, you got to put the throttle down and have some demands, right?
I think DJ gets another month.
I think at this point, DJ's going to last the year.
No.
Barring a catastrophe.
Not barring a catastrophe. Barring if they...
Another 500 month.
Yeah, if they go under 500 in
I don't
November,
expect that, though. They'll be better than that in November, don't you think?
No.
Oh, I thought that in October.
No. Why? They've had a home-heavy schedule.
Yeah.
They've played not good teams.
Coming back from Europe's going to be hard.
You convinced me of that last week.
Yeah, we talked
apparently.
about that. You were not.
I'm not sold on that either. But if you want to say so, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why. You're going to play better teams in November, and you're going to play more games on the road. And it's very clear that when you're at home, your matchups at least give you a chance to win. And when you're on the road, you get killed on some of your matchups. That's never improved. You had a home-heavy schedule in the month of October with all these days off and playing these mid-card teams, like mid-card, like it's a wrestling term, but you know what I mean.
Former U.S. champs.
Right. Like, you've played nobody. You've had most of your games at home. Yeah, you've had a couple injuries. So have other teams. Mm-hmm. Big deal. You know how teams ride through the tough stretches? When they start 7-1, you can lose
those. You got the points in your back.
You can lose a few in a row because it's fine. But when you're getting blown out at home by the Buffaloes and the Detroits of the world, stop with this. I think he gets another month. And if they don't have a great month in November, it's over.
Doesn't this go back to, though, what you saying, like the new management doesn't want to come in and just blow things up? And this has already been a huge move to have to let go Pierre. Are they going to want to do it again in a month?
No, but
because at that point, you're throwing in the towel on the season.
No, you're not.
Oh, of course you are. But at that point, you're bringing in somebody new who's not going to have a camp to put things together. You are pressing the panic button. We're done.
So most of the time, so I do come from the lineage of Robbie Ftorek gets fired 8 games before the end of the regular season. Larry Robinson leads them to a Stanley Cup, the New Jersey Devils.
This is not those New Jersey Devils. That was a mouthful there.
You tell me, okay? You wanted to tell me about the factual records of teams coming back from Europe, which I probably can't debate what their actual record is compared to what I think they should be.
Right.
Okay? What I think they should be, I guess, doesn't matter because the factual records say that this is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, except for the LA Kings, who are doing really well coming back from Australia. But that's okay. We'll ignore that.
It was a month ago. They weren't expected to play 3 days later. It was...
Same as every other trip when
It's
they go
not,
to
and that's
Sweden.
the complete other side of the world as well. That's not even close to the same thing. Let's not do that.
Yeah, it's further than Sweden.
But they did it in like the second week of September. They didn't have to play again on Thursday for games that count.
So if I'm going to...
Look, the LA Kings just came in and pounded on Toronto. They looked really good doing it. The Kings are a very good team.
If
The Senators,
I'm
not
going to
certain.
acquiesce to you on this argument, you're going to have to come back to me and tell
you're right. The rest of your argument.
No, but tell me the new coach bump, and tell me that
It is a thing. It does happen sometimes.
No, sometimes.
Yeah.
Who were the best teams in the league last year? Who was the best team in the league last year? The very best team.
Vegas.
No.
Yeah, they won the Stanley
Yes,
Cup.
I know. But who had the best regular season of
Boston Bruins.
Did they have a new coach?
They did.
Did Vegas
had a full camp?
Stop.
No, that's not the same as firing someone in the middle of the season.
Okay, then I'll fire someone in the middle of the season, and you tell me the records of the new coach bump, and tell me it's not better than it was worse. You're not going to get away with this throwing in the towel on the season because they fire a coach in November.
If you fire, look, maybe it wouldn't be. I'm just saying your point earlier was that new ownerships don't want to come in and completely clean house right away. So they've now had to come in. Their hand was forced. They had to fire
Yeah, they
Pierre.
had no choice.
That's right. They had to do that now.
Agreed.
In 4 or 5 weeks, it's not going well. You're back from Europe.
Yep.
Do they want to do the coach now? And frankly, you're only doing that if this month hasn't gone well, right? You wouldn't fire him if things are going fine and you're back on track. So obviously you've fallen behind the 8 ball. Now you're going to fire DJ, bring in a coach who's not going to get a camp, who's not going to get time to put things together. You know, the new coach thing can work, but not if you're already dead and buried. And this is one of the things that's...
Dead and buried. Why do you keep saying this dead and buried
if
stuff?
they're not firing DJ if they've done fine this month. They've already...
So if they go under 500, 2 games under 500 in November, they're 6 points out of a playoff spot. They're dead and buried?
Pretty close. We do this every year, November 1st, the American Thanksgiving. Teams who aren't in it, it's hard to make that up. Guys, don't get back in it.
First of all, American Thanksgiving's like December 1st, like not November 1st.
I just said November 1st is what Elliot Friedman says is the actual cutoff. American Thanksgiving.
Elliot Friedman says 3 weeks into the season is the cutoff?
Well,
is that what Elliot Friedman says?
He had math.
Okay.
I'm not saying we have to buy into. These are the types of dates that people go, if you're not in it and the math starts to line up, you're not going to be in it. And we've seen Ottawa have this happen before. Shitty Novembers, and then they get to put the pedal down, but you've already fallen 6 or 8 points back, and you just can't get there because there's 3-point games every night, all these sorts of things.
Here's what I would suggest. Okay. I'll throw the making the playoffs. If you are going to claim them dead and buried in November, good for you. That will be your take. It'll be a great opinion.
Can I see what their record is first?
Yeah, it'll be a great opinion. They're dead and buried if they fire the coach in November. Mm-hmm. My opinion would be I would like a coach in that keeps guys responsible, that if they're not playing well, they're actually not going to play and they're not the coach's best friend.
There's only so many guys on the roster.
No, but...
if they're all playing like shit.
Again, Tim Stützle can turn the puck over, and he's going to go.
He seems to be doing that soft thing again, eh? Like,
yeah, he is.
Yeah, it's not good. He's got to get the other out of his game.
Right. But does he ever get punished or sat? Or the only thing a coach can control, we're always told this, is ice time.
Yep.
Because whether you're friends or not friends, or like whatever it is, the one thing that's in your control as a coach, when somebody's not playing well, you can control their ice time and put somebody else out. DJ Smith refuses to do that with his top 6.
Yeah, we've seen like Kubalik get sat down or whatever.
And
but
Pinto last year and all but never. The Kachucks, the Stützles, the Bathersons, the Norrises, never.
Well, see,
so
Kachuk doesn't ever seem to
I'm not saying he deserves
doesn't
it.
give a reason to do it. Yeah.
But not everyone plays a great game every game.
No, that's right.
And I think it's okay that, hey, you're not going tonight. This guy's going. We're actually going to play you a little bit less, and we're not going to have you on the ice not knowing how to defend in our own end and still play you 20 minutes every game.
Right.
A new coach, like let's say Claude Julien comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You think he would put up with that?
Yeah, probably not.
So that's what I want fixed in November if this team is not playing well.
Right.
And I don't, whether they make the playoffs or not, change in direction.
You got to give me that they've had these bad Novembers, and then they play pretty well from December 1st through the rest of the team. But you're too far back. It doesn't matter. And so that's all I'm saying, whether you want to cling to the term I use, dead and buried. Maybe that's overstating it. But if you fired your coach, it's because November hasn't gone well. Now you are 6 or 8 points back again. And it's really hard.
I don't disagree. It's really hard to make up. But when they haven't played well before, they've been like 4-12.
Yeah. So you're saying this time maybe it's 8-11 or something.
Yeah, they're 8-10, and it's like, okay, we got to change things.
Right.
And DJ Smith has had his opportunity. I don't care whether you're the new management coming in or not. This is your trial run because you've been the coach for the last 5 years that has not made the playoffs.
Right.
So while I don't have the track record as a new owner to watch you, I have this first 2 months, and I know what you haven't done before.
Right.
And now I know what I'm seeing, and I got new people in charge, and I need this going in a different direction. DJ Smith is coaching for his life, and you saw that 2 games ago when he fired that water bottle after they lost. His tension is very, very high right now. He has not always been like that.
No, the expectations, as you've suggested, are cranked.
Well, he knows his job is on the line, and when his team's not performing.
Yeah.
So while I understand that they did not want to make today a mistake that the organization has made in being punished with a first-round pick, they didn't want to make that about their head coach because their GM got let go, resigned, fired, whatever you want to call it. That's what the issue is today.
I agree with that.
Doesn't mean that there isn't another issue coming with the coach.